Solitary confinement has the most fascinating history in the United States. The United States was actually the leader in modern times of introducing solitary confinement to the world. It was actually introduced by the Quakers as a noble experiment in rehabilitation. There was a belief that you could put a prisoner in his own solitary cell, freed from the evil influences of modern society. And if you put them in that cell, they would become like a penitent monk, free to come close to God and to their own inner being, and they would naturally heal from the evils of the outside society. It was a noble experiment, and it was an absolute catastrophe. By the 1830s, statistical evidence began to accumulate that there was an inordinate incidence of psychosis, of suicide, and that people just deteriorated. By 1890, there was major condemnation of the institution by the United States Supreme Court. And so the experiment with solitary confinement gradually diminished as evidence became unmistakable that this was causing disastrous psychiatric consequences.
On our special segment tonight, the subject is overcrowding, prison overcrowding.
The state has the nation's largest prison system and also one of the most overcrowded.
Outdated, overcrowded, and near a state of crisis.
With 3 times as many inmates.
So after the Quakers experiment, the United States abandoned the use of solitary confinement. But then in the 1970s, we began to put unprecedented numbers of people in prison. And so you had terribly overcrowded conditions and prisons that looked like they were about to become out of control.
Prison populations reached an all-time high in this country last month, and one prison burst under the strain. Inmates set fire to 13 buildings and then attacked prison guards.
The other thing that happened is that there were increasing numbers of mentally ill prisoners coming into the prison system. Their behavior was harder to understand, it was harder to control. Prison systems didn't have the resources to properly deal with them.
Marion, America's toughest prison. Conditions are so tense, officials now say the prison is in a virtual state of siege.
In October 1983, 2 inmates already serving life sentences murdered 2 guards in the same cell block the same day.
Well, in 1983, there were 2 officers within 24 hours that were killed by the Aryan Brotherhood. The staff at Marion were completely demoralized. They felt that we had to do something to protect them from these inmates, and we had to do something to protect inmates from these inmates. The bureau director got involved and said, lock it down. It wasn't just a day, it wasn't a week, it was a permanent lockdown.
The entire prison was locked down. That is, every man was confined to his cell to restore order.
Now there is nearly 1 guard for every inmate. Unruly inmates can be chained to their concrete slab beds for hours, even days.
The high security, the lockdown was created out of necessity to maintain control of the inmates, confidence and protection of the staff that have to face these kinds of individuals on a daily basis. We never wavered our belief that this was a necessity.
Their response to it was to employ very large-scale solitary confinement, put a ton of people in solitary, which took away opportunities for programming, opportunities for social interaction. And that model of utter total control and harsh punishment took off in the United States, so that over time we've developed more and more supermax prisons where everyone's in solitary confinement.